I was in a board meeting when the family chat exploded. 15 messages in 3 minutes. Jessica had posted professional listing photos of my lake house, the one they'd called that money pit for 12 years. The asking price sat there like a dare, $850,000. My phone buzzed with congratulatory messages to her. Dad, smart move. Uncle Robert, finally some business sense in the family. The property sat on Lake Champlain, 42 acres with private shoreline. I'd bought it in 2013 when they thought I was wasting my corporate bonus on a shack in the woods. They never asked what I did with it. They just assumed I'd failed the way they assumed about everything I touched. I learned early that my family operated on a specific economy. Visibility equals value. If they couldn't see your success, taste it at their dinner table, or brag about it at their country club, it simply didn't exist. My accomplishments lived in a permanent state of non-existence because I stopped performing them for an audience that only applauded my failures. The ghost ledger started when I was 16. Dad's company won a major contract. Champagne, celebration, 2 weeks of dinner conversations about his brilliance. I made National Merit Scholar the same month. He said, "That's nice," and returned to his phone. The cost of that moment. My understanding that achievement without witnesses had no value in their economy. I stopped trying to be seen. I started building in silence. Jessica's listing photos were good, I had to admit. She'd hired a professional photographer. Sunset shots, the dock extending into golden water, the main house with its wall of windows reflecting the mountains. What she didn't photograph: the resort's main lodge, the 12 rental cabins, the marina with 47 boat slips, the restaurant that seated 80, or the event center that hosted 15 weddings per summer. She'd listed my flagship property and called it abandoned. I called Marcus first. He'd been my resort manager for 8 years, lived year-round in the manager's residence, ran a staff of 23. "Marcus," I said, keeping my voice level, "did my sister contact you?" "Oh, that was your sister?" His laugh came through the phone, genuine and slightly bewildered. "She called asking about comparable sales for the abandoned lake house. I told her I managed that property. For you." She hung up pretty fast. What exactly did she say? Asked if I knew who owned the property, said she was handling the sale for her sister who'd let it fall into disrepair and couldn't manage it anymore. Wanted to know what similar properties sold for. I pulled up your owner file while she was talking. The photo matched her name. That's when I told her. I could picture Jessica's face when Marcus said those words. The specific way her mouth would tighten when reality contradicted her narrative. What time was this? About 20 minutes ago. The family chat had gone silent. No follow-up messages. No additional congratulations. Just that hanging silence that meant everyone was making frantic phone calls to each other, trying to understand what had just happened. My phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. Then Dad. Uncle Robert. Jessica called 3 times in 5 minutes. I turned my phone face down and returned to my board meeting. We were discussing the expansion proposal, adding 6 luxury cabins and a spa facility. The architect presented renderings. The financial projections looked solid. The resort generated $2.8 million in annual revenue with a 34% profit margin. My abandoned lake house was a thriving business that employed 23 people and hosted 70,000 guests per year. That evening I drove to the resort. 2 hours north through autumn mountains, leaves burning gold and crimson against the darkening sky. I'd made this drive 700 times. It never stopped feeling like coming home. Marcus met me in the main lodge. The fireplace was lit, crackling with that specific sound of birch logs catching. The smell of wood smoke and leather furniture filled the space. "Your sister's been calling all day," he said. I stopped answering. Good. I poured coffee from the staff pot, the same industrial urn that had been brewing coffee for 8 years. Did she say anything else before she hung up? Just that there'd been a misunderstanding. Asked me not to mention the call to anyone. He slid a folder across the desk. Today's registration reports. Full occupancy through October. The wedding this weekend is the Henderson family. Their daughter stayed here as a kid, remembered it when she got engaged. I opened the folder. Numbers, names, reservation details. This was the accumulated weight of 12 years. Every guest who'd stayed here, every wedding couple who'd chosen this venue, Every family who'd returned year after year. They didn't know about my family's economy of visibility. They just knew the resort existed, functioned, welcomed them. The ghost ledger had specific entries for this property. August 2013. Bought the property. Told family at dinner. Dad laughed. A shack in the woods. Classic. Mom patted my hand. Everyone makes mistakes. Cost. The belief that my dreams deserved respect. June 2014. Resort opened. Sent photos. No response. Cost. The hope that achievement would earn acknowledgement. December 2016. Featured in Top 50 Mountain Resorts. Shared article in family chat. Jessica. Must be a slow news year. Cost 3 years of work reduced to a joke. April 2019. Hired 23rd employee. Mentioned it at Easter. Uncle Robert. Playing business owner must be fun. Cost. Understanding that success without their permission would always be treated as pretend. March 2023. Revenue hit $2.8 million. Said nothing. Cost. Nothing. I'd stopped paying their tax. There's a specific freedom in becoming invisible by choice rather than circumstance. My family couldn't diminish what they couldn't see. The resort existed in a parallel economy where value was measured in guest reviews, revenue reports, employee retention, and wedding couples who cried during their vows on our dock at sunset. My phone had 43 missed calls. I scrolled through the voicemails. Mom's voice, tight with forced cheerfulness. Honey, there seems to be some confusion about the lake house. Call me. Dad's, more direct. We need to talk about this property situation immediately. Jessica's, on her 6th message, had lost all pretense. You let me list a property you own? Do you have any idea how this makes me look? That last one almost made me laugh. How it made her look. I'd learned the architecture of their concern. They weren't worried about violating my property rights, committing fraud, or attempting to sell something they didn't own. They were worried about embarrassment. The social cost of being wrong about me in a way that could be proven, documented, shown to others. Marcus handed me another folder. You want to see this? Jessica sent an email to our info address this afternoon. After she talked to me, I opened it. The email was sent to info@lakechamplainresort.com at 2:47 p.m. To whom it may concern, there has been a misunderstanding regarding the property at 1847 Lakeshore Drive. I am not authorized to list this property for sale. Please disregard any previous communications. This was an error in property identification. Please remove any associated listings immediately. Jessica Winters. Property identification error. Marcus read over my shoulder. That's creative. She's already building her exit story. I could see the narrative forming. An honest mistake. Wrong property listing. Anyone could confuse a single lake house with a 42-acre resort complex. Did she call the photographer? 3 times, according to Sarah at the front desk. He's refusing to return the listing fee. The procedural unraveling had begun. Every fraudulent step created documentation. The photographer's invoice. The listing agreement she'd signed, forging my name. The calls to Marcus requesting comparable sales data. The family chat messages celebrating the sale. The paper trail of her assumption that my property was hers to liquidate. I spent the night in the owner's cabin, a small structure tucked into the trees behind the main lodge. 2 rooms, a fireplace, a wall of windows facing the lake. I designed it as a retreat, somewhere to think. The original abandoned lake house that started everything sat 100 yards down the shore, fully renovated now, rented year-round as a premium luxury rental for $4,200 per week. Morning came cold and clear. The lake was glass, reflecting the mountains in perfect symmetry. I walked to the main lodge. Marcus had coffee ready. Your sister's outside, he said. Arrived 20 minutes ago. Waiting in her car. Through the window I could see Jessica's Mercedes in the parking lot. She'd driven 2 hours to have this conversation in person. That meant she was scared. The family chat had probably erupted after Marcus's revelation. Everyone demanding explanations. Her fraudulent listing exposed. Her authority to take charge revealed as theft. I poured coffee, added cream, walked outside. The morning air bit cold against my face. Jessica got out of her car as I approached. She looked exhausted, mascara slightly smudged, wearing yesterday's clothes. "We need to talk about this," she said. "About you attempting to sell my property without permission, authorization, or legal right?" I leaned against the lodge's porch railing, coffee warming my hands. "That conversation? It was a misunderstanding. I thought," she stopped. "Recalculated. The family thought you'd abandoned it. You never talk about it. We assumed it was just sitting here rotting." "You assumed? Based on what evidence?" "Based on you never mentioning it. Never inviting us here. Letting us believe it was nothing. There was the core grievance. Not that she'd committed fraud. That I'd let her be wrong about me. That I'd built something significant and denied them the opportunity to watch, judge, and diminish it in real time. Jessica, you attempted to sell a property you don't own. That's fraud. You forged my name on listing documents. That's forgery. You collected a deposit from a photographer under false pretenses. That's theft. These aren't misunderstandings. They're crimes." Her face went pale. "You're not seriously considering pressing charges?" "I'm considering the 12 years you called this property a waste. The family dinners where my business was a joke. The assumption that because you couldn't see my success, it didn't exist." I set down my coffee. "You didn't make an honest mistake. You made an entitled assumption that my assets were yours to liquidate when convenient. The family will never forgive you if you make this public. The family has already decided I don't exist except as a source of disappointment and emergency funding. Their forgiveness isn't a currency I'm trading in anymore." She tried 3 more times. Different approaches. Guilt about family unity. Reminders of childhood. Promises that she'd explain it was all a mistake. Each attempt hit the same wall. I wasn't interested in managing her consequences. Marcus appeared on the porch. "Morning staff meeting in 10 minutes. Jessica looked at him, then at the lodge, then at the marina visible down the slope where boats were docked in neat rows. "How long has this been operating?" 12 years. "You never told us. You never asked. You just assumed." I picked up my coffee. "There's a difference between privacy and deception. I built something. I didn't advertise it to an audience that would only find ways to diminish it. That's not deception. That's self-preservation." I walked back into the lodge. Through the window, I watched Jessica sit in her car for 20 minutes before driving away. Her exit strategy would be smooth, practiced. The family would accept her version because the alternative, admitting they'd been entirely wrong about me for 12 years, was too expensive. The staff meeting covered standard operations. Housekeeping schedules. Kitchen inventory. The Henderson wedding preparations. I sat at the head of the table, surrounded by people who existed in the resort's economy where contribution mattered and results were visible, measurable, real. After the meeting, I called my attorney. "I need documentation of a fraudulent property listing attempt." I explained the situation. Jessica's listing. The forged authorization. The photographer's deposit. "I don't want to press criminal charges. I want a formal cease and desist, documentation of the attempt, and a legal barrier preventing any future unauthorized actions regarding my properties." "Properties plural?" my attorney asked. "I own 6 commercial properties. This resort, 2 apartment buildings in Burlington, a commercial complex in Portland, and 2 vacation rentals." She attempted to sell one. "I want all 6 legally protected with documentation that any family member attempting unauthorized transactions will face immediate legal action." Building a wall. Building boundaries with enforcement mechanisms. The documentation arrived within a week. Cease and desist letters. Legal barriers. Clear consequences. I sent copies to Jessica, my parents, and Uncle Robert with a single-line email. Regarding my assets. Look but don't touch. The family chat went silent for 3 months. Then Jessica posted a photo of her new kitchen renovation. Mom congratulated her. Dad admired the granite counters. The economy of visibility continued its normal transactions. I stayed silent, scrolling past, neither participating nor performing. 6 months later, the resort hosted its 100th wedding of the year. The bride cried during her vows on the dock at sunset. Her father thanked me personally. "You've built something really special here." "Thank you," I said and meant it. That night I updated the ghost ledger with a final entry. October 2024. Sister attempted to sell resort without permission. Marcus exposed the fraud in one sentence. Legal boundaries established. Cost, nothing. Return, everything. The family's economy of visibility can't tax assets it doesn't know exist. The Henderson wedding photos arrived the following week. The bride and groom on the dock, mountains behind them, golden hour light making everything glow. Marcus hung it in the main lodge with the hundreds of other wedding photos. Evidence of celebration, commitment, joy. All the things that existed whether my family witnessed them or not. I never told them about the expansion plans. The 6 new cabins. The spa facility. The projected $3.4 million revenue for the following year. Not because it was secret but because their knowledge of it added no value to its existence. The resort was real whether they believed in it or not. That was the final lesson. Success doesn't require an audience. It just requires showing up, building carefully, and refusing to let other people's limited vision define what's possible. Jessica's listing photos are still on my computer. I keep them as a reminder. She saw a single abandoned house worth $850,000. I built a resort worth $12 million. We both looked at the same property. Only one of us actually saw it.